All right. Recording is in progress. I think we're good to go. Um, let's just give everybody a bit of. All right, let's just begin. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. This is Shahzar Ilahi. I'm the founder and the CEO of EnablifyAI, which is an AI enablement firm based out of Pakistan. We work with a lot of different sectors. We work with banks. We work with financial companies. We work with the education sector. We work increasingly with the government. But one of our sort of top sectors in terms of adoption seems to be the legal sector. And lawyers are adopting AI faster than most sectors. I don't think we've seen a trend of technological adoption that is this quick and this rapid among the legal fraternity in quite a while. Enablify itself has also trained around 800 lawyers so far across Pakistan and East Africa in partnership with the East Africa Law Society. Now, given that lawyers are adopting artificial intelligence, it seems to have become, a tool that people want to use, from senior lawyers to judges of the High Court to associates to law students. We felt that we bring in the very right person to talk about this. I'm just going to make an introduction very quickly, and then Will continue to introduce himself. If you're a law firm partner, if you're an associate, if you're an in-house legal counsel, and you're thinking about institutional adoption of artificial intelligence, this is the webinar that you need to listen to. And the reason for that is that we have with us Will Chen, who is the founder of an extremely disruptive platform called Mike Open Source Software, MikeOSS. And so what he's done is that he's essentially open sourced a lot of workflows that were previously guardrailed behind very expensive subscriptions, and they work equally well. And if you just Google Will Chen right now, or Mike OSS, you'll be able to understand the gravity of this technological disruption. So with that, Will, I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and then we will continue with the webinar.
Yeah. So my name is Will. A bit about myself. So I used to be a lawyer. Technically, I still am a lawyer. I still have my practicing certificate, but it's just that I'm no longer in a law firm. So I studied law at Oxford in the UK, and then afterwards I practiced in an American law firm called Leighton Watkins for 3 years. And I'm an English qualified lawyer. I practice mostly in Singapore, but a bit in the UK as well. And I left law around end of 2024 because I saw the whole AI wave coming, and I've always been interested in technology and entrepreneurship. I'm a self-taught coder as well, so I've been sort of like coding as a hobbyist, doing my little projects on the side while being a lawyer for the last 10 years. So I thought, okay, there's this big disruptive wave of AI coming, and I thought I could probably do something interesting in the intersection between law and AI. And so for the past year or so, I've been exploring different projects, and how I landed on doing MikeOSS was actually because sort of like back in the end of like 2025, beginning of this year, I had a lot of friends whose firms were getting Harvey and Legora. I think a lot of them were pretty excited about it, but when they actually got their hands on it, they told me that they were not that impressed. A lot of them, they told me that they would have preferred if their firms just gave them ChatGPT or Claude instead. So me personally, I had never seen Harvey and Legora because I actually left my old firm before they got Harvey. So I decided to, find out for myself, right, what these pieces of software actually look like. So for those of you who don't have, the complete background, so Harvey and Legora, there are these companies which are valued at like $11 billion and $5 billion respectively. They raised a lot of funding, billions of dollars of funding from Silicon Valley venture capitalists, and they have been adopted by, I think, virtually every single top 200 American law firm. And so for me, right, so this is back in March and beginning of April. I was really curious about it, so I wanted to find out for myself what they looked like. So I got my friends to show me Harvey and Legora. And when I saw them for the first time, the first thought that came into my mind was, this is it, right? Because I think there was a big lead up to it. I went into this without any preconceptions, right? And I thought that, they should be really, really sort of complicated, really advanced piece of software designed for the legal vertical, right? Vertical AI SaaS. That was like a very popular business model. So like, you have massive companies in this area. And I assume that, quite a bit of that venture funding went to differentiate Harvey Legora against ChatGPT and Claude. But what I saw was that, there wasn't that much differentiation actually. Okay, so the first thought was like, this is it. And the second thought that came to my mind is, I could probably vibe code this in 2 weeks, right? Because at that point of time, I've already been using Cloud Code and Codex from OpenAI very, very extensively because I was working on a bunch of different projects. So I knew from my sort of like coding knowledge that I could probably do this in about 2 weeks. And that's what I started to do, right? And I wanted to make it open source because I thought that, okay, it's a chance to, like call the big players, say that, okay, perhaps the Emperor has some clothes. And I think I wanted to make it open source as well because I wanted it to be a democratizing force, right? So I wanted to be something that everyone can have access to, everyone can see how it's being done. And so, I started on this journey without any sort of plan in mind. I released it on a Wednesday. I actually had a vacation plan on Friday. And, I put it online. The first like hour, I put it on LinkedIn. I think I got maybe like 5 likes or something like that. I thought, okay, no one's interested. No one cares about this. Like, who cares about legal tech and legal AI, right? So I thought, okay,
And then
um,
it
yeah,
suddenly blew up.
yeah, and then funny enough, because a few people in my network started liking it, and so it's sort of, I guess the algorithm started picking up, and just more and more people started liking it, and suddenly every hour there was like hundreds of likes, right? And by the time I boarded the flight on Friday, it had already become pretty viral on LinkedIn. I was getting a lot of DMs, so I decided to put it on X as well. I had an account of like 70 followers. I already posted that, and I just posted that. Why not, right? And by the time I got the flight, it had completely blown up, right? And it had like 2,000 plus likes, and people blowing up my DMs. I had industry veterans, CEOs, people all asking me about it, and yeah, it was a really, really exciting journey. And I think right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to continue to trying to continue to push Mike forward, trying to build upon it. I want it to be a piece of software that everyone has access to. So you get whatever sort of advanced features that Harvey and Legora have. I want to build on top of that. I want to make it even better. And I want to make it for everyone. So not just for the top 200, top 300 American and European firms.
Absolutely brilliant. So, Will, now let's talk about institutional adoption of AI and where Mike fits in, right? So, from what we know, so when I go to a law firm, there's usually 3 questions, right? So, all right, we know that there's the Harveys and Legoras of the world, but in countries where adoption is high, but the ability or the appetite to pay a large subscription fee is relatively low, even in top sort of law firms. So Legora and Harvey become slightly difficult to adopt. And I'm talking about East Africa, I'm talking about Pakistan, I'm talking about Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, etc. Right? Now, the other alternative, and this is something that Enablify has been pitching already, is that listen, there's 2 ways to build or enable yourself when it comes to AI. You either buy a wrapper which is built on a foundational model and it's a really well-made wrapper, or you onboard your firm onto a frontier model. So you onboard your entire workflows onto Claude itself, either as projects or as coworks or as really, really deliberately meticulously written skills where you map your brain onto Claude and then it performs. So those are the 2 ways that existed before Mike, right? Now, enter Mike. What you've done is that you've created those workflows. You've created the kind of workflows that a law firm would have to use on an everyday basis. And now all you need to do is sort of link that up to an API, which could be Claude, which could be ChatGPT, and then you
Yep.
use sort of Mike that way, right? So in terms of these 3, which one would you recommend to a law firm that is just starting out their AI journey? So imagine the partners are using ChatGPT on personal accounts on the side. The associates are slightly, more advanced. They've been using projects, they've been using cowork, and now they're talking about institutional adoption of AI. So
Yeah.
We'll talk about the data later because a lot of people don't realize that AI will only perform as well as your data sort of exists and based on the quality of the data that is there in your law firm. But apart from the data question, what should be step one?
Yeah, so I think you give a great summary of the possible options out there. So let me just quickly discuss each one. So I think Harvey and Legora, they are pretty expensive, right? So for those of you who are not quite familiar with their pricing, so I believe that both companies, they offer a list price of around 4,000 US dollars per year per seat. So basically, if you have 10 lawyers in your firm and you want to deploy Harvey and Legora to 10 lawyers, it will cost you about $40,000, 40,000 US dollars. And that's a steep price, right? But what actually happens is that they have offered very drastic discounts for American law firms, because they want to get this sort of like branding and prestige. So for example, I imagine like my old firm like Latham or just any of the like top American firms. What I've heard is that they have gotten pretty extensive discounts, something like 60-70%. But as these companies start to gear towards profitability, they have been trying to raise their prices. And we heard from Legora recently that they want to charge consumption pricing, so which means that you pay by per token, right? So you don't pay a fixed fee anymore. I think you can also sort of like make the assumption that they won't be offering these sort of discounts to um to like basically every firm in the world, right? They have only offered these discounts to sort of like American AmLaw 200 firms or whatever, because they wanted to get sort of like that first batch of customers. They wanted to get their prestigious logos on their branding to be associated with them. So I think in the future, what we can expect is that the prices will only go up from here. And I think that's definitely a problem. When you're trying to deploy like Harvey and Agora in certain countries where like firms possibly could not afford those prices, right? And it's only going to become more expensive, right? So I think what I imagine is happening for a lot of law firms. I mean, even in Singapore, right, is that lawyers are kind of just using a personal ChatGPT or Claude co-work accounts, right? And I think it works. It works, right? Because on certain levels, right, I think ChatGPT and Claude actually works better than Harvey and Agora. So there's a recent report by Thomson Reuters, for example, which cites the use of shadow AI. And what they did is that they interviewed lawyers from firms I assume is mostly restricted to America and the EU, right? And most of the enterprises and law firms in these places already have Harvey and Agora. But the survey showed that around like 30 to 40% of lawyers actually still continue to use their own personal accounts secretly, right? So that's why it's called shadow AI. So they're using ChatGPT or Claude, despite their firms not allowing them to use anything besides Harvey and Agora due to confidentiality reasons. And I think this works well, right? But the concern of using your personal accounts is privilege and confidentiality. So there has been case law in certain countries like the US and EU, right, saying that okay, if so in the US there's a case called Hapner, for example. So in that case, it was a client who used ChatGPT and basically uploaded confidential documents to it, and then he sent the answer that the ChatGPT gave back to him and sent to the lawyer. And the court basically ruled that because you used ChatGPT, you broke privilege, right? You broke attorney-client privilege. And the UK actually went further. In that case, it was actually I can't remember the name of the exact case, right? But it actually went further. In that case, you actually had a lawyer who uploaded confidential client documents to ChatGPT, and the judge ruled that because you did that, right, you broke privilege because ChatGPT is a sort of like is a public website. That's available to use by everyone, and when you upload documents to ChatGPT, right, OpenAI can train on your documents. So these were factors that they took into account. I think the problem of using these personal accounts is that firstly you have privilege issues. Secondly, right, your that there's data retention as well. So your client documents are being sent to these companies and they are being retained in the servers. What you can do is that you can sign up for enterprise plans with these places, but the pricing is sort of like $25 a base price. I mean, it's sort of like I think probably maybe a lot of the firms lawyers here have already explored that. So you get a base price of $25 around there, and that's before you spend anything on tokens, right? That's before you ask your first question, and then you start paying per token on top of that. So your bill can be pretty high. And finally, right, we have the last option, right, which is open source AI platforms, right, which is like Mike. So right now, Mike, when you go to the website, what happens is that you are asked to put in your own API key. So basically, I do not charge you for just having access to the app as well, but you can put in your own API key, which means that you can go to OpenAI or you can go to Claude. You can get a zero data retention agreement with them, and then you can put it in, and then you can start using it. So I know that this is not that convenient for a lot of lawyers. So I think going forward, my plan is to offer like a pretty cheap, affordable subscription, maybe like $20 a month, and then we can have different tiers, right, up to maybe $60. And what's going to happen is that you get zero data retention, and you get access to good models. And I'm going to try to keep the cost down through various methods, including by using open source models. So I think there's a really exciting development now where you have open source models coming out of China, coming out of different places. They're able to handle the same tasks at one time for the price of the American models.
I was just about to say that. So with GLM 5.2 coming out and DeepSeek V4 open sourcing, or Kimi or Quinn for that matter, now it's not just that you have the entire workflow which is open source, something which was actually hard, which you've done already, but it's also supplemented by this mass open source LLM movement. And model seems to be all of the models that are coming out very recently seem to be very nearly matching the benchmarks of some of the highest performing frontier labs. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think to sum up, right, I think what I'm trying to propose is that, we have this really interesting moment of time right now where the open source models are catching up to, or some people would argue has already caught up to the frontier American models that are very expensive, right? So the model layer is becoming cheaper. And the application layer is becoming cheaper as well, right? Because what I'm offering is that I'm going to give you something that's affordable, right? I'm even giving away the code for free. So therefore, my goal is to make AI really affordable, right? So I think the lawyers that Enablify AI work with, these are the people who I really want to target and reach out to with Mike. I hope that when both these layers, right, both the models and the application layer become cheap, affordable, and open, I think that is great for everyone.
Agreed. And I think that's ultimately also going to put a lot of pressure on frontier labs to maybe rethink their financial models.
Yeah.
But again, it's a difficult task for them to do. Now, Will, tell me this. Now, imagine, let's do a bit of role playing, right? So imagine that I'm the founding partner of a big law firm based out of Pakistan. I can't afford 40,000. Even if I can, I don't want to pay $40,000 for Harvey or Legora, right? Now, one of the problems, it's surprising how many people do not know this. If you use your ChatGPT or your Claude accounts, your personal or individual accounts, regardless of whether they're paid or free, the
Yeah.
default setting is that everything that you upload shared with Anthropic, you're going to use that to train their to train their model to make it better. So now, let's say that I graduate from the Claude OpenAI, enabling my law firm by onboarding it on a frontier model, and I want to use Mike, right? Now, let's say my firm specializes in 5 different things. Let's say I do tax. So I do regulatory work, primarily regarding taxes. Let's say I also do mergers and acquisitions work. Let's say I do contractual work. And I have a very small criminal litigation practice. And this is very common for firms in Pakistan where they'll be doing a bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
Now, what would step 1, step 2, step 3 be if I want to use Mike? So, as a practitioner, explain to me how I onboard my firm and everybody in terms of myself, my fellow partners, and then my associates onto Mike, and how do I adjust its workflows? How do I link it to my data? And the reason why I'm asking you this question, I know it's too rudimentary for you. I know it's too fundamental, but there's a lot of listeners who
Yeah.
actually would want a practitioner's sort of guide to using Mike from tomorrow, right? So I want to give you an opportunity to explain that, please.
Okay, so then let me just first explain, right, and then I can maybe share my screen and just go through a quick demo, a very quick one. So I think what what is sort of the current state of Mike, right, is that I'm very clear, sort of like you go to the terms of use on the website. Currently on the website itself, when you go to MikeOSS.com, so that's the website, um, it is not a full service yet. Okay, so it is a demo. So you can go to the website, you can test it out, see how it works, right? That there is a big barrier to using it, which is that you have to bring your own API key. And I understand that it can be difficult for lawyers to set it up. A lot of people have actually come to me, lawyers have told me that they really want to use it, but they don't know how to get their own API key, right? I know there's a problem. So my next move, right, is that I'm going to start offering inference. So I'm going to make it a very simple service, right? You just go to Mike, you sign up for an account. Okay, you put in your email or you sign up with Google, and straight away, you it's going to be like $20 a month, or if you need a bit more, you have $40, right? And you can start using it like ChatGPT or whatever. Okay, what's going to offer is that you have zero data retention. You can delete your data anytime you want, and you have your security controls as well, your multi-factor authentication, so it's going to be a secure application. And anytime you want, you can delete your account as well, and when you do so, all of your data is gone. Okay, and it's going to try to keep this cost affordable. I'm going to keep the cost affordable by using a combination of different methods, including using open source models. So I think some people think that, okay, if it's a Chinese open source model, there's like data going to China. The answer is no, right? So there are actually a lot of providers out there who are based in America or other countries, right? Who basically they host the open source models themselves, and they offer zero data retention, which means that Mike will work with these providers who host the open source models, Chinese models in America. Okay, and wherever your queries go to Mike, it will be routed to them, but they will not retain any of your data. So your queries, as soon as it's done, it disappears, right? Your documents, as soon as it's done, it disappears. And so I think what this means is that you get something that is in fact better from a confidentiality and privilege standpoint than using your $20 ChatGPT or Claude. And you also get something that's extremely affordable, more affordable than Harvey and Legora. And I'm going to try to push the envelope to make sure that whoever the customers of Harvey and Legora, the massive American and European firms who are paying thousands of dollars, I mean millions of dollars a year for these services, right? You're going to get the same or even better. Oh, Mike.
That's nice. Lovely. So, Will, what I'm going to do is ask you one question. It's sort of like a macro question, and I want your opinions on this because lawyers seem to be very divergent on this. And then once you've answered this, we'll go on to maybe you sharing your screen, right?
Yeah.
So the question is this: in February 2025, I made a post which I got a lot of flack for it, and from lawyers in Pakistan because I wrote. So the
Yep.
title of the post was "Most lawyers I know are going to be irrelevant in 10 years' time." Right? And you can well imagine what happened next, right?
Yeah.
And the argument that I was trying to make was not that lawyers are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. The argument was that lawyers that do not AI enable themselves are going to become irrelevant because the speed of adoption, not just in the legal fraternity, but also the courts around the world, is just too fast, right?
Yep.
And my argument was that when a court decides a matter, usually it decides on four things. It decides on what the law says, what the precedent is, what evidence is there, and what arguments your lawyer is presenting to you. Now, if there's a particular machine learning model that, I mean, theoretically speaking, is trained on every single law of your country, every single precedent that exists in that subject matter, has gone through or is trained on every single case file that includes evidence and arguments, there is
Mhm.
very little reason to believe that the next judgment is going to be different from the previous 1 million judgments on a rent dispute, for instance. So that was the argument that I was trying to make. The argument that I also made was that lawyers who will thrive are lawyers who have excellent networking skills and
Mhm.
lawyers that specialize in settlements or mediation advocates or they're part of a broader sort of legal system where litigation is not the only way to settle disputes. Because it's very
Yeah.
difficult for AI to take over mediation. There's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of
Yeah.
mistrust to a machine, and I won't really be telling it the interests behind my supposed position or claims, right? So that was the argument that I was trying to make. Anyways, I got bombarded for it. 5 months later, surprisingly, the Supreme Court of Pakistan issued a judgment on an 8 year long rent dispute which had been pending for 8 years. And the Honorable Judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Mansoor Ali Shah, an excellent, excellent judge. I can't tell you, I mean, one of the judges of the highest caliber that we've had in Pakistan, currently teaches in Harvard, he teaches at Yale. He
Mhm.
made the exact same argument that courts are going to adopt artificial intelligence, right? And lawyers that do not know how to use AI, they're just missing out on a lot. They're missing out on the future. And lo and behold, in October 2025, the Abu Dhabi government launched its first pilot paperless, lawyerless court, trained on this exact same machine learning model, right? So we're living through a time where we're seeing this happen. If I was a law student today, Will, and I came to you for advice, right? Because it's not just that you're an Oxford grad and you worked in one of the largest law firms. It's not also, and you're a legal quant. You've created MikeOSS, so you understand this sector better. You understand the convergence of law and AI better than most lawyers. If
Mhm.
I came to you as a law student for advice, or I came to you as an associate for advice, or even a founding partner for that matter, who doesn't use AI as much, what would you tell me? Where is the future heading?
Yeah. So I totally empathize with you getting flagged on LinkedIn. It happens to me a lot as well. And I think a lot of times, when you say some things that, are a bit uncomfortable with people's worldviews, I think you're gonna get a bit of flack for it, right? And I think sometimes, we also kind of, perhaps say things that, you know, maybe people take it a bit wrongly. I think, some I made some posts, right, saying certain things that, was not exactly, completely my intention of people interpreting that way, but people just take it so badly. I think a lot of people, are pretty sensitive, right? And that is doubly true when it comes to legal tech and lawyers, right? I think lawyers, we can be a bit sort of like honest with ourselves. We can be, a little bit cynical, and we can be a bit egoistical sometimes. There's a lot of pride in the profession. But I think, what the legal profession kind of needs to do right now is to rethink the way that they are approaching things, right? So I think a good reference point for how the legal profession should approach AI is to look at what has happened in the software engineering world. So I think of legal AI as sort of, still about like 2 to 3 years behind where software engineering is when it comes to AI adoption. So obviously, software engineering is sort of the leading use case of AI at the moment, and obviously, software engineers being tech people, they are also the most willing to use AI, and therefore they are, I would say, 2 to 3 years ahead. And what has happened in the area is that software engineering has been fundamentally changed, right? You really do not have any engineers writing code by hand anymore. So me myself every day, right? I'm writing code, but I don't write it line by line. Like a year ago I was still doing that, but now I can't remember the last time I actually wrote a full line of code by hand. So what I'm doing is that I'm literally just telling the model, I'm telling Codex, I'm telling Claude, to design a feature for me, to write, and then to execute it. And I rarely ever touch code myself, right? But if you look at how lawyers are still working today, I think a lot of lawyers are still, manually typing in Microsoft Word, doing copying and pasting. I think part of the reason is because, the tech in legal tech is just not good enough, right? I think, Harvey and Legora, they haven't pushed the envelope enough. So legal tech AI tools have not caught up with how good tools in the AI coding space have been. The second reason, obviously, is also, tech adoption comes a bit slower in law than compared to uh, software engineering, right? So I think if we make the assumption, right, that um, what has happened in software engineering is going to happen to law. I think what lawyers, especially new young lawyers, and also existing lawyers, right, need to do is to really fundamentally rethink how they work, right? So I think we could definitely see, like maybe in a year's time, or maybe in two years time, right? Um, people might not be, sort of like hand typing every single line in the contract, or drafting the brief anymore, right? So perhaps the first move is to ask AI to do a first draft, right? It doesn't mean that we don't need lawyers anymore. It doesn't mean that lawyers are not going to have to review what is being written by the AI. So I still constantly review the code. I still have to constantly fix bugs. So, but what the average lawyer's role becomes, right? It becomes supervisory. It becomes planning. It becomes more strategic, right? Instead of doing typing line by line. And for individual lawyers, right, and for firms as well, it becomes incumbent on you to keep up to pace with the development of AI, right? You have to learn. You have to keep learning, right? You have to rapidly learn, because if you don't, your competitors are there. They're going to be using AI, and if you don't use AI, you're going to be taking 10 times the amount of time that they are taking, and your rates aren't going to be competitive anymore. So that is all my answer.
Agreed with you. Completely agreed with you, Will. And one of the things I'd actually like to show you before you move on to sort of so what I'm going to do is let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah. Not
Yeah,
yet. Oh, yeah.
not
Go,
yet.
go.
All right. So I'm just going to share it now. Okay, so if you look at the screen here, this is the legal assistant that I built for myself. This is literally just a custom GPT, and I show this to lawyers who say, no, nothing's going to happen to us. It's literally a custom GPT that I made, which was trained. It took me 6 months to get this data, but maybe like 20 minutes to set this up. And what I show them is, so this is a small experiment that I do. So in Pakistan, when you go and you lodge a criminal sort of complaint, you write what is called a first incident report. And so this is a very badly written prompt. It was a hit and run accident. The name is Ahmed, son of Rizwan, etc., etc. An accident happened on the 1st of June. Draft an FIR in Urdu language. Now, generally, if you ask a lawyer in Pakistan to draft an FIR, it's going to take around if he's senior, he's going to ask his associate to do it. It's usually going to take you 2-3 hours. And I think within 6 seconds, in exactly the language that the police would understand, and anybody from Pakistan watching this, with all of the right laws included, no hallucinations, it drafted the first draft within 6 seconds. And then I was like, can you now draft a constitutional petition to be filed in the Islamabad High Court against the lack of stop signs leading to accident? Islamabad is the capital of our country. And suddenly what happened was you had in exactly the format that the court would accept, all of the respondents are accurate. You have precisely the draft that the court would accept. You have the grounds, you have the questions for public importance, the prayer, etc. And again, it took another, like, I think 6 seconds to draft this. So one of the things that and the reason why I show this is, if anyone thinks that things are not going to change, they're fooling themselves, right? It's almost like saying the internet is here, it's not going to change how we work. And here we are in 2026, and if you tell somebody that I work without the internet, it's almost bewildering, right? So I personally believe it's a change of it's bigger than the internet. What's coming is much bigger than the internet, and I completely agree with you. I think the debate of whether we should use it and whether we should not use it needs to be put to rest. I think what needs to now happen is, how do we use it? So do we go to the Harveys and Legoras of the world? Do we adopt frontier models? Or do we use open source software, which eventually is going to become cheaper and more better, which is exactly what you're doing. So I 100% in agreement with you, Will. Now with that, if you'd like to share your screen and show us what Mike OSS looks like right now, I think I'm sure the participants would love to see.
Yeah. So let me just try to share my screen. Give me a second.
Sure, take your time.
Yeah, so we can. Yeah, so this is what Mike looks like at the moment. So you can see that you can pick all the models, your latest models all here. You have Fable, which just recently was unblocked again by the US. And as soon as the newest models come out, I'll add it in. Right now, what is happening is, as I mentioned, I don't provide the models myself. So what you have to do is you have to go to Claude, you have to go to Google, you have to go to OpenAI to get the API key yourself. But very soon, I think in about a month's time, I'm going to start providing a service where you can pay like $20 a month and you get all the models, right? So you have the assistant right here. And you have projects as well. So projects are basically just where you can create a new project, and it'll be a place where you can gather your documents, and essentially, okay, we have this like we have an example project already created here. So imagine you're doing a bunch of NDA reviews, and we have a two NDAs here, and you can save documents on top of each other. So you can see that there are 5 versions of this NDA. So it goes from version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. So basically, you're like lawyers all know this. When you're in the process of drafting something, it's always useful to have versioning control, which is present in certain software like iManage or NetDocs. And it's very interesting. It's very useful to have them all gathered together instead of having separate documents. So you can see how this is very useful. And you can save something as document as a Word doc, and then you can save the final executed version, PDF on top of it as well. And we also have tabular review. So I'm not sure whether you guys are familiar with it, but it is basically a feature where you can sort of you can add your documents. Give me a second.
Yeah. Tabular review was what I found to be one of the most useful features. So if I'm comparing different versions of contracts, I mean, it doesn't get better than tabular review. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now I'm just going to run it with like a single document, and you can see like so actually this works if you have like 10, 20 or 100 documents, right? And you can see that there are different columns, and within each column you have the ability to add some prompts, and basically it will specify okay, like what I want what I want to be summarized. Okay, so for example, you have the direction of the NDA, and it comes with the citation as well, so everything is grounded, so you can see that. Yeah, so and then you can click on all of this all these other answers, right? And everything is grounded. Okay, so right now I'm just showing you with a single document. I didn't manage to sort of like prepare this beforehand. If I knew that I was presenting, I would have prepared like 10 20 PDFs, and we could review that in real time, but fortunately I did not. Yeah, so it's a great way to get a high level summary of the document, right? And then next we have workflows. So here, right, you have workflows that are both for the tabular review. So tabular review, it just means that you have preset columns for each one, and you have a prompt for each column. So basically telling the AI what to summarize. And you have it for different types of documents. Yeah. And you also have workflows for the assistant as well. So basically just sort of like custom instructions about what the agent is supposed to do. Yeah, and I think if we go to the assistant right now, we can sort of and just do a quick example, right? Yeah. Okay, so imagine that we are sort of reviewing this NDA right now. Okay, and we can use the workflow that's for reviewing NDAs. So yeah. So in this workflow, we ask it to provide a risk rating, and we ask it to sort of give a result that looks like this, right, in the form of a table. So you have the issue, you have the summary, and recommended change. Okay. Yeah, just like for the interest of making this demo short, I'm just going to run it on Gemini Flash because I think it's probably quite fast. You can pick any model you want really to run. So you can see the full list of models here. Yeah. Okay, so it's running.
And what are some of the pre-built workflows that you already have in MikeOSS, or do you have the option of making your own workflows as well based on your own practice?
Yeah, absolutely right. So if you go under workflows, you can actually just create your own workflow. So what it means is that just go to the workflows page. I can just like quickly show you guys later. Like at the top, just click add new, and then you can type it out. Like so you can basically design workflows the way you want it, the way that your firm does it. Because right now this is very generic, right? It's sort of what I assume that in general what people are looking out for when they're reviewing NDAs. So you can see the agents working, and it's applying the workflow. It has read the NDA, and so now it's asking questions, right? So it's asking, so which party do I actually represent? Okay, so this is just a random draft workflow, random draft NDA that I did. So assuming that we are, so this NDA, in this hypothetical scenario is like Vertex AI is being bought over by SpaceX, right? And I'm just going to say that, okay, I'm the lawyer representing SpaceX, for example. Okay, so now the AI has this information. Yeah, so now it's giving out the answer. Yeah, so now you have the answer, and yeah, if you click on it, you see that it's giving you analysis, right? It's giving you analysis, it's giving you a summary, and it has even implemented track changes about the recommended changes that it thinks you should make when you're representing SpaceX. And yeah, so this is just a quick demo, right? I hope
Oh,
you.
absolutely brilliant. Oh, absolutely. I think we have I mean, we have a fairly good idea, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are going to go to your website today and try it out for themselves. We will be I'll be posting or sharing a couple of other resources that you can find on my profile on how do you get an API. It's honestly very simple. I mean, all you have to do is go to Claude, and you can also ask Claude to help you get the Claude API. It'll explain to you what to do. Um, um, Last question, well, and then we'll end. Data is of it. I can't even there's no way that I can overestimate the importance of how important having the right data is for a law firm,
Mhm.
especially in law firms that do not belong in the top 200 in the US or top 200 or top 100 in Europe. You have data scattered around your law firm, and it's usually living in human memory, right? It's in somebody's Google Drive, it's in somebody's email, it's in somebody's laptop. Some of the things are somewhere else, and most, like, the founders will have everything, in their head. What I keep on recommending to people is that you should have your data sorted in an order where it's so easy to find. So, one of the things that I recommend to people is that you divide it, like you have a folder for every type of practice area. If I
Mhm.
go into that folder, every single client should be named in, so every client should have a folder. When I go into that, year wise folders should exist. When I click on a particular year, every client correspondence, every client deliverable, every output should be parked in that folder. And then there should be a mega folder with that practice area, that these are the 20 laws that I use 90% of the time when I'm drafting, or these are the 100 case precedents that I always use when I handle this particular kind of function area. And I always tell them that unless your data is sorted like this, no matter what frontier sort of technology you're using, whether you're using Cowork or MikeOSS for that matter, it'll be very difficult for you to actually get value out of artificial intelligence. How true do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that's really important, right? So you know the answer of the AI is only as good as the data that you provided, right? So, for example, if you ask it to draft something and you don't provide the AI with sufficient information, yeah, it's like basically if you put in crap, right, you're gonna get it crap out, right? Same as well when you're doing legal research. I think a lot of people sort of like assume that you can just ask AI, okay, tell me the law about something, right? But if you just do that, you might get a lot of hallucinations. You might get cases that are made up, But if you go even further, right, and you provide them, like you sort of like you go to the case law website by the Pakistani government, or where you download the case, whether you download it as a PDF or whatever, right, or you copy and paste it in, then you provide the information to AI. That's going to give you a much more detailed and much more accurate research. Same as well when you're organizing the data of your firm, right? So we have like high quality sort of like data, like you have organized like all of the clients' data all in one place. you can draft documents that they're much more accurate, much more precise, much more sort of like fine tuned to what the client actually needs, right?
Very true. And 100% in agreement with you. And you have all of this new technology. I'm just winding up the webinar now. I mean, there's so many tools that are coming out there. One of them I really want to show sort of people. This is, for instance, so what I'm about to share on my screen is, there we go. So this little tool is called AI Attorney. It was developed by a former law graduate of the Lahore University of Management Sciences who was a judicial law clerk, pivoted and then set up his own software house and has created this, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is well, it's a compendium of 500,000 case judgments from Pakistan, 70,000 case judgments from the UK Supreme Court, and 25,000 case judgments of the Indian Supreme Court. So what it does is it doesn't only allow me, it doesn't have, it's not just that it has an AI sort of feature where I can, so it's basically a legal AI research platform.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made sort of searching for cases entirely easy. So for example, murder 2004. So it's not just that cases are going to pop up and in a way that it's very easy to sort of understand, but it's also that if I go to the chat section, let me see if I can open up some chats here. Yeah. So, for example, Arbitration Act, Section 17. So it pinpoints essentially what this tool does is that it eliminates hallucinations altogether because it's essentially a RAG model that's based out of extremely meticulously organized, scanned, machine readable data on which the model has been sort of trained. What I've done is that I've linked this to my, Claude account as a connector because they have a connector now. So every time I'm doing legal research, Claude doesn't go back to its training data because one of the biggest problems that we're facing in Pakistan and a lot of other countries is hardly 5 to 6% of our legal data is digitized. So it doesn't exist in the training data of either Claude or OpenAI or any of the frontier labs. So these tools that are coming up actually help you eliminate hallucinations if you just connect them, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a very interesting time to be, for lawyers all around the world. But particularly, I think AI is, if it's used correctly, going to be the great equalizer for lawyers who come from jurisdictions such as Pakistan, such as East Africa, such as Singapore, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc., where it gives you access to the same power and the same technology that has been used, in the Western Hemisphere for a very long amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. I think I want Mike to be part of that. I want it to be part of this great leveling, right, of the playing field. For so long, right? The sort of like the West, right? They can afford the best, but I think with open source models, with open source software, that's going to change. I want Mike very very explicitly, right? I want it to be a very open piece of software, right? There's no sort of barrier to adopting it. You can like about a month from now, I'm gonna make it a service that literally you go on the website, you can just sign up, pay $20, and you can just start using straight away, right? And you're gonna get the same features, or I would think even better than having Legora. Yeah.
Big law tech really needs to watch out for you, don't they? Well, thank you very much. It was such a pleasure talking to you. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for all of the insights. Thank you for showing us Mike's demo and wishing you the very best of luck in your journey. What you're doing is a great service to the legal profession. Also, we're going to take a question. Do you know if anyone has created a version of Mike with something similar to Harvey's Vault?
Yeah. So, um, well, Mike has Harvey's fault. So it's projects, right? So I already showed projects. So essentially, like what the vault is that you can upload documents on it, and then you can run tabular reviews. Basically, I have let me just show it again. So um, yeah, just a quick one. It only take like 30 seconds. Um, yeah. So you can see, right? You can create a new project, but let's just go back to the old project, and you can share it with anyone. So just click here, and you can share it with other people in your team, and you can upload new documents as well. You can add documents, and you can start tabular reviews here. So you can create new under tabular reviews, and you can start an assistant chat as well. So the project assistant looks like this. So basically, you get the documents over here. You click on it, it shows up, and then you can chat with the documents. You can ask them to make edits across different documents, and yeah, you basically this is the equivalent to Harvey's vault. Yeah, and there's no limit to the number of documents you can upload to it.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely perfect. Will, thank you very much once again. For everybody that was listening in, thank you for your time as well. We will be sharing a recording of this. Will, I'm going to share a recording of this with you as well. I'll share the video as well as the YouTube link. I'm going to put this up on my LinkedIn. It's also going to be up on the Enablify AI website. And once again, Will, what you're doing for the legal sector is an absolute service. If only if more people understood what you're doing for them. It's literally democratizing artificial intelligence and making sure that legal tech is not guardrailed behind either very expensive subscriptions or very heavy brand names. And I think that's it's such an excellent service to the legal profession at the very cusp of artificial intelligence. So, Will, thank you very much for your time, and thank you everybody that was listening in.
thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Will. Bye bye.
Are we ending the stream or?